He was the king of New York, a man who built an empire on blood and silence. Dante Moretti didn't fear death. He expected it. But as he lay in his hospital bed inside his fortified mansion, pretending to be unconscious, he wasn't prepared for the betrayal walking through his door. It wasn't an assassin with a silencer, and it wasn't a rival gang member. It was the two women who made his bed and served his coffee. As their footsteps stopped beside his pillow, Dante tightened his grip on the hidden blade beneath his sheets, ready to strike. But then he heard 6 words that froze the blood in his veins and changed everything. They weren't planning to kill him. They were planning something far more dangerous. The morphine drip was a lie. Dante Moretti, the capo dei capi of the 5 boroughs, had clamped the tubing hours ago, hiding the crimp under the sterile white sheets. The pain in his shoulder where the sniper's bullet had shattered his clavicle 3 days ago was a living thing. It throbbed with a white-hot intensity that kept his mind razor-sharp. Pain was good. Pain meant he was alive. The bedroom was expansive, a cavern of mahogany and velvet shadows located in the east wing of the Blackwood estate. The only light came from the medical monitors, casting a rhythmic, sickly green glow across the room. Dante kept his breathing shallow and rhythmic. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. It was a meditation technique he'd learned from a mercenary in Corsica years ago. To the untrained eye, he was deep in a drug-induced coma. To anyone paying attention, he was a coiled viper waiting to snap. He knew someone inside the house had sold him out. The hit at the warehouse had been too precise. They knew his schedule, his route, and exactly when his security detail would swap shifts. That meant the rat was close. Click. The heavy oak door creaked open. Dante didn't flinch. His hand, hidden beneath the duvet, wrapped around the cold polymer grip of a subcompact Glock 43. He'd taped it to his thigh before the nurse left for the night. 2 sets of footsteps, soft soles, rubber on hardwood. "Is he out?" A woman's voice, a whisper trembling. That was Callie, the young one. 22 with big doe eyes and a nervous habit of wringing her hands. She had been working the 2nd floor for 6 months. Innocence was usually a mask in Dante's world, but Callie always seemed genuinely terrified of him. "Look at the monitor, Callie. Heart rate is 60. He's under." The second voice was lower, huskier. Rosa. She was older, maybe mid-30s, with callous hands and a stoic face that gave nothing away. She handled the laundry and the cleaning of the private study. Dante waited. If they moved toward the pillow, he would put 2 rounds in Rosa's chest and 1 in Callie's leg. He wouldn't kill the young one immediately. He needed someone to interrogate. "Check the hallway," Rosa commanded. "It's clear. The guard is downstairs flirting with the night nurse. We have 3 minutes." Dante felt the mattress dip. Someone was leaning over him. He smelled lavender detergent and the faint metallic scent of fear. "He looks peaceful," Callie whispered. "It feels wrong, Rosa. If we do this, there's no going back. If he wakes up, if we don't do this, he won't wake up at all." Rosa snapped her voice, dropping to a hiss. Dante's finger froze on the trigger. What he expected them to discuss, smothering him with a pillow or injecting an air bubble into his IV. He expected them to be looting the safe behind the portrait of his grandfather. "Luciano is coming at midnight." Rosa continued, her voice urgent. "I heard him on the phone in the library. He told the Rizzo family that the king is falling tonight. He's going to switch the medication, Callie. He's going to overdose him and make it look like heart failure." Dante's mind reeled. Luciano. his consigliere, the man who had stood beside him at his father's funeral, the man who was the godfather to Dante's late sister. "Oh, God," Callie whimpered. "Do you have the bag?" "Yes." I packed his passport, the cash from the emergency safe in the pantry, and the drive. The drive, the one I stole from Luciano's jacket. It has the proof, Callie. The transfers, the emails to the feds, everything. If Dante sees this, he'll burn the city to the ground. But how do we move him? He's heavy and he's the boss. We can't just drag him out the back door. Rosa sighed, a sound of heavy burden. We use the laundry chute to get the supplies down, then we use the service elevator. I paid off the driver, Marco. He's loyal to Dante, not Luciano. He's waiting by the north gate. Dante felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead, unrelated to the pain. His 2 housemaids, women. He barely looked at women he considered part of the furniture, were plotting a heist. But they weren't stealing from him. They were stealing him. "We have to hurry," Callie said, her voice gaining a sudden desperate strength. "Because of the other thing. If he dies, he never finds out about the baby." Dante's eyes snapped open. The room went deathly silent. Callie gasped, stumbling back and knocking into the IV pole. It rattled loudly. Rosa froze her hand, hovering over the nightstand where she had placed a black duffel bag. Dante ignored the pain in his shoulder as he sat up the sheets, falling away, to reveal the gun in his hand. He didn't aim it at them. He let it rest on his knee, the threat implicit. "What baby?" Dante's voice was gravel unused for days, but it carried the weight of a thunderclap. Callie looked like she was about to faint. Her face went sheet white. Rosa, however, didn't flinch. She stared right into Dante's dark eyes, her chin lifted. "The one you don't know exists, boss," Rosa said evenly. "Rosa!" Callie hissed. "He's awake, Callie. The game is up," Rosa said, stepping between Dante and the younger girl. "Shoot us if you want, Mr. Moretti. But Luciano will be walking through that door in 10 minutes with a syringe full of potassium chloride. You can kill your saviors, or you can get your ass out of bed." Dante stared at them. He was a man who read micro-expressions for a living. He looked for the twitch of a lie, the shift of a pupil. Rosa was terrified, but she was telling the truth. "Luciano," Dante said, testing the name like poison on his tongue. "He sold you to the Rizos," Rosa said rapidly. "For territory. He thinks you're weak. He thinks you've lost your edge since your wife died." That struck a nerve. Dante's jaw tightened. "And why do you care? Why risk your lives for a man who pays you minimum wage to scrub his toilets?" Callie stepped out from behind Rosa. She was shaking, tears welling in her eyes. "Because you're not the monster they say you are. And because she needs a father." "Who?" Dante demanded. "Your daughter," Callie whispered. Dante looked at Callie. Really looked at her for the first time. He saw the curve of her jaw, the specific shade of hazel in her eyes. Memories of a reckless night in Monte Carlo a year ago flashed through his mind. A waitress, a masked ball. He hadn't known her name then. "You..." Dante realized the gun lowering slightly. "We can do the Maury Povich episode later." Rosa interrupted, grabbing the duffel bag. "Right now we need to move. Can you walk?" Dante ripped the IV tape from his arm, grimacing as the needle slid out. Blood trickled down his forearm. "I can walk." "Good," Rosa said, kicking the doorstop. "Because the King of New York has exactly 5 minutes to disappear." The adrenaline was a better painkiller than the morphine ever was. Dante swung his legs over the side of the bed, the world tilting on its axis for a moment, before snapping back into focus. He was wearing nothing but silk boxers. "Clothes," he grunted. Rosa tossed a bundle from the duffel bag. A black tactical turtleneck and dark jeans. I grabbed what I could from the closet without making noise. Put them on. As Dante dressed, wincing as he pulled the fabric over his injured shoulder, his mind was racing, analyzing the tactical situation. Blackwood Estate was a fortress. High walls, motion sensors, armed guards patrolling the perimeter. If Luciano had turned, that meant the security team was compromised. The men he paid to protect him were now his jailers. "Luciano manages the security roster," Dante said, buckling his belt. "If he's the traitor, the cameras are loop-fed, or the guys watching them are in on it." "Which gate?" "North," Rosa said, peeking through the blinds. "The service entrance. It's usually unmanned at shift change, which is 11:45 p.m. That's now." "And Marco? He's driving the laundry van. He thinks we're smuggling out stolen silver to sell. I didn't tell him he was smuggling you." Dante almost smirked. "Smart. You two have been busy." "We hear things," Callie said softly. She was picking up the discarded medical tubing, trying to make the bed look undisturbed. "When you're a maid, people stop seeing you. They talk on the phone, they have meetings. They think we're just part of the room." "I underestimated you," Dante admitted. He checked the magazine of the Glock. 6 rounds, 1 in the chamber, 7 total. Not enough for a war, but enough for an escape. "Let's go." They moved into the hallway. The house was silent, a silence that felt heavy and suffocating. The portraits of Dante's ancestors stared down from the walls, men who had lived and died by the Code of Omerta. A code Luciano had just pissed on. They reached the service elevator. Rosa pressed the button. Ding! The sound was too loud in the quiet house. Dante cursed under his breath. He pushed Callie and Rosa behind him, raising the gun. The doors slid open. It was empty. They stepped inside and Rosa hit the button for the basement, the laundry level. "So," Dante said, watching the floor numbers light up. "The baby. Where is she?" Callie wouldn't meet his eyes. "She's with my mother in Queens. She's 3 months old. Her name is Sophia." Sophia. His mother's name. A punch to the gut. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried," Callie said, her voice breaking. "I came here to tell you. I took this job to get close to you. But then I saw the violence. The men coming in with blood on their suits. I got scared. I didn't want that life for her." "But you stayed." "I stayed because I heard Luciano talking," Callie said, looking up at him now, her eyes fierce. 3 weeks ago, he was talking about the succession plan. He said you were becoming a liability. I couldn't let them kill Sophia's father." Dante felt a strange tightening in his chest. He was a man who commanded fear, respect, and loyalty bought with money. He wasn't used to loyalty born of whatever this was. Love duty. The elevator jolted to a halt. The doors opened to the humid, detergent-scented air of the laundry room. "Clear," Dante whispered. They moved past the industrial washers toward the loading bay. The rolling metal door was cracked open a few inches. Outside, the engine of a van idled. "That's Marco," Rosa whispered. Dante moved to the door and peered out. A white delivery van. The driver was smoking a cigarette, looking nervous. Suddenly the lights in the laundry room killed. Pitch black. "Down!" Dante roared, tackling Callie to the concrete floor. "Thwip! Thwip!" 2 bullets slammed into the washing machine where Callie's head had been a second ago. Silencers. "They know!" Rosa screamed, diving behind a linen cart. "Luciano isn't waiting for midnight," Dante growled. He scrambled to his knees, using the heavy metal washer for cover. "He's cleaning house." At the far end of the laundry room near the elevator, the beam of a tactical flashlight cut through the darkness. Then another. "Mr. Moretti," a voice echoed. Smooth, cultured, and deadly. "Luciano. I really wish you had just stayed in bed. It would have been painless." Dante gripped the Glock. "You broke the oath, Luciano." "The oath is for men who want to win, Dante. You've been mourning your wife for 2 years. You're soft. The Rizzos are eating our lunch in Jersey and you're brooding in the Hamptons. It's business. Just business." "I'm going to cut your heart out," Dante promised, his voice calm and terrifying. "Kill them," Luciano ordered his men. "Kill the girls, too. No witnesses." Dante looked at Callie. She was curled in a ball, hands over her ears. He looked at Rosa. She had grabbed a bottle of industrial bleach and was holding it like a grenade. "Rosa," Dante whispered, "can you get to the breaker box?" "It's on the other wall," she hissed back. "I'm going to draw their fire. When I do, you run for the van. Get Callie out." "No," Callie cried. "We're not leaving you." "You are," Dante said, his eyes locking onto hers. "Go to Queens. Protect Sophia. If I don't make it, there's a safety deposit box at the Chase Bank on 5th. Key code 8219. There's enough money for 3 lifetimes. Go. Dante. Go." Dante popped up from behind the washer and fired 2 shots. Bang, bang. The flashlight beam jerked wildly as one of the gunmen took a hit to the shoulder. The return fire was deafening sparks flying as bullets chewed up the metal machinery. "Move! Move!" Dante shouted. Rosa grabbed Callie by the collar and dragged her toward the loading bay door. Dante provided covering fire, counting his rounds. 4 left, 3 left. He saw the gunmen advancing. Tactical vests, assault rifles. He was outgunned. He needed a distraction. His eyes landed on the steam valve of the industrial presser next to him. He waited until Luciano's shadow fell across the floor. 2 left. Dante fired at the pressure valve. Ping! A jet of superheated steam exploded into the room with a shriek like a banshee. The gunmen screamed as the white cloud engulfed the hallway, blinding them and scalding their skin. Dante didn't wait. He turned and sprinted for the loading bay, diving under the rolling door just as bullets pinged off the concrete behind him. He landed on the asphalt, groaning as his bad shoulder hit the ground. "Get in!" Rosa yelled. She was in the driver's seat of the van. Marco was gone. Probably ran off at the first gunshot. Dante scrambled into the back of the van, pulling the sliding door shut just as the laundry room door flew open. Luciano stood there, framed by the steam, firing a handgun blindly into the night. "Drive!" Dante roared. Rosa slammed her foot on the gas. The van tires squealed, smoking against the pavement, and they fish-tailed out of the estate, smashing through the wooden arm of the service gate. Dante slumped against the wall of the van, gasping for air. The pain was blinding now. He looked over at Callie. She was sitting on a pile of dirty linens, trembling. But she was alive. "You okay?" he rasped. Callie nodded, wiping soot from her face. You saved us. We're even," Dante said, closing his eyes for a second. "You woke me up." "Where are we going?" Rosa shouted from the front. "We can't go to the Queen's house. They'll find it." Dante opened his eyes. The predator was back. "Go to the Bronx," Dante said. "Arthur Avenue." I know an old butcher there. He owes me a favor. We go to ground. We heal." He looked at his shaking hands, then at the two women who had just upturned his entire reality. "And then," Dante said, a dark promise filling the small space of the van, "we take back my city." The white delivery van rattled over the potholes of the Cross Bronx Expressway, the suspension groaning under the strain of the high-speed escape. In the back, the air was thick with the smell of unwashed laundry bleach and the copper tang of fresh blood. Dante sat propped against the wheel well, his face grey. The adrenaline was fading, and the pain in his shoulder was returning with a vengeance, a rhythmic hammering that synced with his heartbeat. He watched Rosa in the rearview mirror. She drove with a scary kind of precision, weaving through traffic, checking blind spots, running red lights only when she knew the intersection was clear. "You drive like a getaway pilot," Dante muttered, his voice barely audible over the road noise. Rosa met his eyes in the mirror. "I drove ambulances in Fallujah before I scrubbed your floors, Mr. Moretti. You learn to drive fast when the road explodes." Dante let out a dry, pained chuckle. "A combat medic, in a Maids uniform. I really need to fire my HR department." "Focus on staying alive," Rosa snapped, swerving around a taxi. "We're almost to Arthur Avenue." They arrived in the Little Italy of the Bronx 10 minutes later. The streets were quieter here, lined with bakeries, delis, and markets that had stood for 100 years. Rosa pulled the battered van into an alleyway behind a shop with a faded sign, "Sal's Prime Cuts." "Stay here," Dante ordered Callie. "If we don't come out in 5 minutes, you take the van and you drive until the gas runs out." "I'm not leaving you," Callie said, her voice trembling but stubborn. She reached out her hand, hovering over his uninjured arm. "You're bleeding through the bandage." "I've had worse shaving cuts," Dante lied. He slid the door open and stepped into the cool night air, Rosa flanking him like a shadow. Dante banged on the steel back door of the butcher shop. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. A moment later, a slat slid open. A pair of suspicious eyes peered out. "We're closed," a gruff voice grumbled. "Open the door, Sal," Dante rasped, "or I'll tell your wife about the poker game in Atlantic City." The eyes went wide. Chains rattled, locks turned, and the heavy door swung open. Salvatore Sal Russo, a massive man in a blood-stained apron, stood there, holding a cleaver. When he saw Dante, pale, sweating, and dressed in a tactical turtleneck, his jaw dropped. "Dio mio," Sal breathed. "The news said you were in a coma. They said you were dying." "The rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated," Dante said, stumbling forward. Sal caught him before he hit the floor. "Get him on the prep table," Rosa commanded, stepping past Sal as if she owned the place. "I need vodka, a needle fishing line, and clean towels. Now." Sal looked at the woman, then at Dante. Dante nodded weakly. "Do what she says, Sal." 10 minutes later, Dante was lying on a stainless steel table, usually reserved for butchering hogs. His shirt was cut open, revealing the angry, inflamed wound on his shoulder. Callie stood in the corner, holding his hand, her knuckles white. Rosa worked with efficient, brutal speed. She poured cheap vodka over the wound to sterilize it, causing Dante to hiss through his teeth. "The stitches from the surgery tore," Rosa observed, threading a curved needle. "I have to close it up again. This is going to hurt. A lot." "Do it," Dante gritted out. He looked at Callie. "Talk to me. Distract me." Callie blinked, tears streaming down her face. What should I say? Tell me about her." Dante said, his eyes locking onto hers. "Tell me about Sophia." Rosa pushed the needle through the skin. Dante's body seized, every muscle locking up, but he didn't scream. He squeezed Callie's hand so hard he thought he might break her fingers. She has your nose," Callie stammered, her voice high and panicked. "And she hates when sleeping in the dark. I have to leave a nightlight on, a little plastic bear that glows blue." "Blue," Dante wheezed. "My favorite color." "I know," Callie whispered. "She laughs when you tickle her feet, and she has this little birthmark on her shoulder, shaped like a star." Dante froze. He ignored the needle weaving through his flesh. "A star? Yes, on her left shoulder." Dante closed his eyes. He had the same mark. It was a genetic trait in the Moretti bloodline passed down for generations. It was the proof he hadn't known he needed. "She's mine." Dante whispered the reality of it, finally sinking in, past the shock and the pain. "She's really mine." "She is," Callie sobbed. "I was so afraid you'd take her away, that you'd turn her into part of this life." "Done," Rosa announced, tying off the final stitch and snipping the line. She taped a clean gauze pad over the wound. "It's ugly, but it'll hold. You need antibiotics, or you'll be dead of sepsis in 3 days." "Sal has horse antibiotics in the back," Dante said, sitting up slowly. The room spun, but he forced it to stop. "Use those." Sal returned from the front of the shop, looking pale. "Dante, I just saw the TV in the break room. It's all over the news. Luciano. He gave a press conference." Dante slid off the table, buttoning his ruined shirt. "And he announced your death," Sal said quietly. "Heart failure. He's declared himself acting boss until the commission meets, and he's put a bounty on a rogue employee who he claims stole from the estate, a maid named Callie." The room went cold. Dante turned to Callie. She looked terrified, shrinking against the tiled wall. "He knows," Dante said, his voice dropping to a lethal register. "He knows you were the one who woke me up. He doesn't know I'm alive, so he's hunting the only loose end." "My mum," Callie gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Sophia is with my mum." "If Luciano connects you to your mother," Rosa said grimly, cleaning the blood off her hands, "he'll go there. He'll use them as leverage to find the money he thinks you stole." Dante grabbed a heavy cleaver from the magnetic strip on the wall. He weighed it in his hand. It wasn't a Glock, but it was a start. "Sal," Dante said, "I need a car, not the van. Something fast, something clean." "Take the Cadillac out back," Sal said, throwing him a set of keys. "It's got a full tank." "Dante, what are you going to do?" Dante looked at Callie, then at the door. The predator wasn't just back. He was cornered, and a cornered predator was the most dangerous thing on earth. "I'm going to introduce my daughter to her father," Dante said, "and I'm going to kill anyone who gets in the way." The Cadillac Escalade tore down the FDR Drive, the city skyline, a blur of lights against the black water of the East River. It was 2:00 a.m. The city that never slept was watching them. Dante sat in the passenger seat, the pain in his shoulder now a dull, throbbing ache thanks to the adrenaline and a handful of ibuprofen Sal had given him. He had Sal's backup piece, a Beretta 92 FS, tucked into his waistband. Callie was in the back seat, frantically trying to call her mother on a burner phone Rosa had produced from her bag of tricks. "She's not answering," Callie cried, her voice rising in panic. "It's going straight to voicemail. Why isn't she answering? The cell towers might be overloaded, or she's asleep," Rosa said from the driver's seat. though her tone suggested she didn't believe it. "Keep trying." Dante turned in his seat to look at Callie. In the passing streetlights, she looked so young, yet there was a steeliness in her eyes he hadn't noticed when she was dusting his library. "Callie," Dante said softly. "Where exactly in Queens?" "Astoria," she said. 23rd Avenue. It's a second-floor walk-up, above a bakery. Good neighborhood, busy, hard to do a snatch and grab without witnesses." Dante analyzed. "That buys us time." He looked at Rosa. "You never finished telling me. Who were you really?" Rosa kept her eyes on the road. "Does it matter? You stitched me up like a surgeon, and you clear rooms like a commando. My household staff is usually good at polishing silver, not tactical extraction. Who do you work for, the feds? The Bratva?" Rosa sighed, tapping the steering wheel. "I worked for your father." Dante stiffened. "My father died 10 years ago. Before he died, he knew things were getting unstable. He knew Luciano was ambitious. He hired a private firm, my firm, to place a sleeper agent in the house, a fail-safe. My job was to watch report to a dead drop and intervene only if the family line was threatened with extinction." "So you've been spying on me for 10 years?" Dante asked, anger flaring. "Watching over you," Rosa corrected. "I washed your underwear, Dante. It wasn't exactly James Bond glamour. But when I saw the sniper hit you and I saw Luciano blocking the ambulance from the main gate, I knew the extinction event had started." Dante processed this. His father, the old Don, had been paranoid. It seemed his paranoia had finally paid off from the grave. "And the baby?" Dante asked. "Did you report her?" "No," Rosa said softer. "That wasn't part of the contract. That was personal. I saw how Callie looked at you. I saw the baby. She's innocent, Dante. In our world, innocence is the first thing that gets slaughtered. I wanted to give them a chance to run." "Thank you," Callie whispered from the back seat. "Don't thank me yet," Rosa said, her eyes narrowing as she looked in the rearview mirror. "Because we have a tail." Dante snapped his head around. 2 black sedans were weaving through traffic, 3 cars back, matching their speed perfectly. "Luciano's men?" Dante asked. "Or the Rizzos, or just freelance hitters. The bounty is out," Rosa said. She slammed the accelerator. The Cadillac surged forward, the V8 engine roaring. "Can we lose them?" Callie asked, gripping the door handle. "Hold on," Rosa said. She took the exit for the Triborough Bridge at 60 miles an hour, tires screeching. The sedans followed, closing the gap. "Dante, I can't shoot and drive," Rosa yelled. Dante rolled down the window. The wind whipped his hair back. The pain in his shoulder screamed, but he forced his arm to steady. He leaned out, aiming the Beretta at the lead sedan. Bang! Bang! The windshield of the first car shattered. The driver swerved, clipping the concrete barrier. Sparks flew, metal shrieked. The car spun out, blocking the second sedan. "Nice shot," Rosa shouted. "I aimed for the tire," Dante grunted, pulling himself back inside. "I missed." They crossed the bridge into Queens, leaving the wreck behind, but the silence in the car was heavy. They had been found too easily. The phone, Dante realized. He turned to Callie. "The burner phone. Did you turn it on when we left the Bronx?" "Yes, to call my mom," Callie said. "Triangulation." Dante cursed. "They pinged the tower. Turn it off. Take the battery out. Now." Callie fumbled with the cheap plastic phone, ripping the back off and yanking the battery. She threw the pieces on the floorboard. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." "It's not your fault," Dante said, his voice hard, but not angry at her. "But they know we're in Queens. They'll figure out the destination. How much farther? 5 minutes, Rosa said. We need to get there before they do, Dante said, checking the magazine of the Beretta. Callie, listen to me. When we get there, you run up and get the baby. Do not stop for diapers. Do not stop for clothes. You grab Sophia and you get back in the car. Rosa and I will hold the door. What if they're already there? Callie asked, her voice small. Dante turned to her. His eyes were dark pools of ancient violence. Then I burn the building down with them inside. The street in Astoria was ominously quiet. The bakery on the ground floor was dark, the metal grate pulled down. The streetlights cast long, jagged shadows against the brick facades. Rosa killed the headlights as they turned onto the block. She double-parked the Escalade in front of a fire hydrant, keeping the engine running. Second floor, Callie pointed. The windows with the flower boxes. The windows were dark. Stay here, Dante told Rosa. You have one arm working, boss, Rosa argued. You need backup. I need a driver ready to peel out. If we both go up and get pinned down, we're all dead. Watch the street. Dante opened the door and stepped out. He moved differently now. The pain was just data. The exhaustion was just background noise. He was the capo dei capi, and someone was threatening his blood. Callie ran to the front door of the apartment building. She fumbled for her keys, her hands shaking so badly she dropped them. Breathe, Dante whispered, picking them up. He unlocked the door. They moved into the stairwell. It smelled of old cabbage and floor wax. They crept up the stairs, the wood creaking under Dante's boots. Second floor, apartment 2B. The door was ajar. Dante's blood ran cold. He pushed Callie behind him, raising the Beretta. He pushed the door open with his foot. The living room was tossed. Sofa cushions, slashed drawers pulled out and dumped on the floor. A lamp lay shattered on the carpet. Mom! Callie screamed, rushing past Dante. Callie, wait! She ran into the bedroom. Dante followed, sweeping the corners of the room with his weapon. The bedroom was empty. The crib in the corner was overturned. Callie fell to her knees, clutching a small pink blanket. They took them. They took them. Dante scanned the room. No blood. That was good. If they wanted to kill them, they would have done it here. This was a kidnapping, a leverage play. Look, Dante said, pointing to the wall above the crib. Pinned to the dry wall with a switchblade was a note. Dante walked over and pulled the knife free. The note was written on fancy stationery, Moretti family stationery. The warehouse on the docks. Pier 4. Come alone, Dante, or the little princess gets a closed casket. Pier 4, Dante growled, crumpling the note. That's Luciano's main distribution hub. He has my baby, Callie sobbed, rocking back and forth. He has Sophia. Dante knelt beside her. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Callie, look at me. She looked up, her eyes swimming with terror. He took them because he's afraid, Dante said intensely. He knows he can't kill me in a fair fight. He knows he can't hold the throne if I'm alive. He thinks this makes him strong. It doesn't. He's going to kill her. Callie wept. No, Dante said. He's not. He stood up, pulling her to her feet. He just made the last mistake of his life. He touched my family. They ran back down the stairs. Outside, Rosa was revving the engine, looking frantic. Police sirens 2 blocks over, Rosa yelled as they jumped in. Where's the baby? Luciano has her, Dante said, slamming the door. Pier 4. Rosa cursed in Italian, a long string of profanities. That's a fortress, Dante. He'll have 20 men there. snipers, dogs. We have one gun and a half-dead boss. We have something else, Dante said, his mind working like a chess grandmaster. We have the drive. The drive? Callie asked from the back, wiping her eyes. The one Rosa stole, Dante said. Luciano wants to be king fine. We're going to show the world who he really is. Rosa, give me the drive. Rosa dug into her pocket and handed him a small silver USB stick. Callie, Dante said, turning to the back seat. You know how to use social media, right? You know how to make things go viral. I guess TikTok, Twitter. Good, Dante said. We're not going to Pier 4 alone. We're going to bring the whole city with us. Dante pulled out a laptop from the bag. Rosa had packed his encrypted business laptop. He booted it up. Rosa, head to the pier, Dante commanded. But drive slow. We need 10 minutes. What are you doing? Rosa asked. Dante jammed the USB drive into the port. He cracked the encryption in seconds. It was his own security protocol after all. He opened the files, emails, wire transfers, photos of meetings with federal agents, proof that Luciano had been selling out the other 4 families to the FBI in exchange for immunity and territory, proof he was a rat. In the Mafia, Dante said, typing furiously. Being a murderer is a resume builder, but being a rat, that's a death sentence. I'm sending this to everyone, Dante said, his fingers flying across the keys. The Rizzo family, the Russos, the Albanians, the frantic news outlets, and the FBI tip line. He hit enter. There, Dante said, leaning back, a grim smile on his face. Luciano thinks he's waiting for a broken man to walk into a trap. But by the time we get him there, he's going to have a war on his doorstep. We still have to get inside and get Sophia before the shooting starts, Callie said, her voice trembling, but determined. That's the easy part, Dante lied. He checked the chamber of his gun. Rosa, park the car a block away. We're going in on foot. Callie, you stay in the car this time. Engine running. No, Callie said. Dante turned. I'm coming, Callie said. She reached into the glove box and pulled out a tire iron. She's my daughter. If you die, who gets her? I'm coming. Dante looked at her. He saw the same fire he saw in the mirror. Stay behind me, Dante said. And if I tell you to run, you run. The Escalade screeched to a halt in the shadow of a shipping container. Ahead, Pier 4 loomed a massive warehouse surrounded by chain-link fences and floodlights. Dante opened the door. The wind off the water was cold. Let's go get our girl, he said. The wind off the Hudson River was biting, carrying the scent of salt diesel and rotting fish. Pier 4 was a monolith of corrugated steel and shadow jutting out into the black water like a tombstone. It was surrounded by a 10-foot chain-link fence topped with razor wire, and the yard was patrolled by men with Rottweilers. Dante, Rosa, and Callie crouched behind a stack of rusted shipping containers about 50 yards from the main gate. Dante checked his watch. The email went out 7 minutes ago. The Rizzo family has a stronghold in Jersey. If they moved immediately, they're crossing the bridge now. We have to time this perfectly. And if they don't come? Callie whispered, gripping her tire iron so hard her knuckles were white. They'll come, Dante said, his voice void of doubt. Luciano was selling their secrets to the feds, to a mobster that's worse than murder. They'll come to skin him alive, but we need to get Sophia out before the war starts. Dante looked at Rosa. The perimeter. Rosa scanned the yard with a small pair of binoculars she'd pulled from her tactical bag. 2 guards at the gate, one on the roof with a thermal scope. 2 dogs patrolling the south side. Inside, who knows? Take out the thermal, Dante ordered. "I'll handle the gate." "With what?" Rosa asked. "We have one pistol." "We have surprise," Dante said. He turned to Callie. "Stay here. When the gate opens, you run for the side door, the one marked maintenance. Do not stop until you're inside." Dante moved. Despite the agony in his shoulder, he moved with the liquid grace of a predator. He slipped through the shadows, using the noise of the crashing waves to mask his footsteps. He reached the generator box that powered the floodlights. It was a gamble, but chaos was his only ladder. He jammed the barrel of the Beretta into the fuse mechanism and fired a single muffled shot. Pop! A shower of sparks erupted, and the entire west side of the pier plunged into darkness. "Hey!" one of the guards at the gate shouted, raising his rifle. "What was that?" Before he could radio it, in a dark shape detached itself from the shadows. Dante didn't use the gun he needed to save rounds. He struck the first guard in the throat with a knife-hand strike, crushing the windpipe. As the man fell, Dante spun, using the momentum to drive his knee into the second guard's solar plexus. The guard doubled over, gasping. Dante pistol-whipped him into unconsciousness. High above on the roof, the sniper scanned the darkness, confused by the sudden blackout. A second later, a rock thrown with terrifying precision by Rosa clanged against the metal ventilation shaft behind him. The sniper turned. Rosa, who had scaled the drain pipe like a spider, was already there. She choked him out with a sleeper hold, lowering him gently to the roof. She flashed a hand signal to Dante. "Clear!" Dante waved Callie forward. She ran her breath hitching in her chest, keeping her head down as she sprinted past the unconscious guards. They regrouped at the maintenance door. Dante shot the lock off. They were in. The interior of the warehouse was cavernous, smelling of sawdust and damp cardboard. Rows of pallets were stacked to the ceiling, creating a maze of narrow aisles. In the center of the warehouse, under a single hanging halogen bulb that ran on an auxiliary circuit, was a clearing. Dante held up a hand. "Stop." Through the gaps in the pallets, they could see them. Luciano sat on a wooden crate, holding a glass of scotch. He looked relaxed, arrogant. Surrounding him were 6 heavily armed men. In the center of the circle, tied to a metal folding chair, was Callie's mother, Martha. She was bruised, her lip split, but she was alive. And next to her, in a plastic travel carrier, placed precariously on a stack of heroin bricks, was Sophia. The baby was crying a thin, exhausted wail that tore through Dante's heart like a serrated blade. "I don't understand," Luciano was saying to Martha, swirling his drink. "Why would a maid risk her life for a man like Dante Moretti? He's a killer, a ghost. He's a better man than you." Martha spat, though her voice shook. Luciano laughed. "He's a dead man. He just doesn't know it yet." Dante felt Callie tense beside him. She was going to bolt. She was going to run to her baby and get herself killed. He grabbed her arm, his grip iron hard. "Not yet," he breathed into her ear. "Wait for the thunder." As if on cue, a massive explosion rocked the front of the warehouse. The heavy rolling metal doors buckled inward with a screech of tearing metal. Luciano jumped to his feet, dropping his glass. "What the hell?" Automatic gunfire erupted from outside. Shouts, screams. "Boss!" one of Luciano's men yelled, running in from the loading dock. "It's the Rizzos and the Russos. They're all here. They've breached the perimeter." "The Rizzos!" Luciano's face went pale. "Why?" "They're saying you're a rat," the henchman screamed. "They say you sold them to the FBI. They're here to kill everyone." Luciano looked around wildly. "It's a lie. It's—" He stopped. He realized. "Dante," he hissed. "Now!" Dante yelled. Dante stepped out from the shadows of the pallets the Beretta raised. "Luciano!" His voice boomed, echoing off the metal walls. Luciano spun around, his eyes widening in disbelief. You're supposed to be in a coma." "I woke up," Dante said, walking forward into the light. "Let the women go." Luciano grabbed Sophia's carrier, pulling a gun from his holster and pressing it against the plastic shell. "Take another step and the brat dies," Luciano shrieked. He was sweating now, the arrogance replaced by the desperate panic of a trapped animal. Outside, the gunfire was getting closer. The other families were cutting through Luciano's men like a scythe through wheat. "Put the baby down, Luciano," Dante said calmly, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. "The Rizzos are outside. You're a dead man walking. There's no escape. Don't add child killer to your resume." "You did this," Luciano yelled. "You turned them against me." "You did that yourself when you broke the code," Dante said. He kept walking, slow, steady. "I'm just the messenger. Stay back." Luciano cocked the hammer. Suddenly, a tire iron flew through the air. It wasn't thrown with professional accuracy, but it was thrown with the hysterical strength of a terrified mother. It sailed past Dante and struck Luciano square in the forehead. Thud. Luciano staggered back, stunned, the gun wavering. "Go!" Dante roared. Callie sprinted into the clearing. She didn't go for Luciano. She went for the carrier. She grabbed Sophia, shielding the baby with her body, and dove behind a stack of pallets. Rosa was there a second later, cutting Martha's bonds with a combat knife. "Move. Get to cover." Luciano shook his head, blood trickling into his eyes. He raised his gun toward Callie's fleeing form. Dante didn't hesitate. He didn't aim for the leg. He didn't aim to wound. He fired 3 shots. Bang, bang, bang. 2 hit Luciano in the chest. The third caught him in the throat. The traitor fell backward, crashing into the stack of heroin bricks, sending white powder billowing into the air like snow. He gurgled once, looking up at the dusty ceiling, and then went still. Dante stood over him, breathing hard. The pain in his shoulder was a roaring fire threatening to consume him. The warehouse doors blew open. A dozen men in heavy leather jackets stormed in, guns raised. At the front was Sal Rizzo, the Don of the New Jersey faction. He looked at the carnage. He looked at the dead Luciano. He looked at Dante, who was standing alone in the center of the room holding an empty gun. The room went silent. The only sound was the distant wail of police sirens and Sophia's soft whimpers from behind the pallets. Sal Rizzo lowered his shotgun. He looked at Dante with a mixture of shock and begrudging respect. "They said you were dead, Moretti," Rizzo grunted. "I was sleeping," Dante rasped. "I had a bad dream." Rizzo kicked Luciano's body. "We got the email. Is it true? Was he the rat?" "Check his pockets," Dante said, holstering his empty weapon. "You'll find a wire." Rizzo's men searched the body. One of them pulled a small recording device taped to Luciano's chest. Rizzo's face darkened. He spat on the corpse. "You did us a favor, Dante," Rizzo said. "We consider the debt paid. The territory dispute is settled. You keep Brooklyn." "I don't want Brooklyn," Dante said, swaying slightly. "I want a vacation." Rizzo laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Fair enough. We'll clean this up before the cops get past the gate. Go." Dante turned. Callie was standing there holding Sophia tight to her chest. Her mother was leaning on Rosa. Dante walked over to them. He looked at the baby. Sophia had stopped crying. She was looking at him with wide, dark eyes, eyes that mirrored his own. Callie reached out and took Dante's hand. Her fingers were warm. "Is it over?" she whispered. Dante looked at the dead traitor, then at the exits where his enemies were now nodding at him in respect. "The war is over," Dante said, collapsing to his knees as the exhaustion finally took him. "Now the hard part starts." 3 months later. The villa on the Amalfi coast was perched on a cliff overlooking the Tyrrhenian Sea. The air smelled of lemons and sea salt, a far cry from the exhaust and blood of New York City. Dante sat on the terrace, a newspaper folded on his lap. His shoulder still ached when it rained, but the wound had healed into a jagged silver scar. He was wearing a linen shirt, the sleeves rolled up, revealing the tattoo on his forearm, a lion protecting a cub. "Dante!" He turned. Callie was walking through the glass doors, carrying a tray of espresso and biscotti. She looked different. The fear was gone from her eyes, replaced by a vibrant, sun-kissed confidence. She wore a sundress that caught the breeze. "You're supposed to be resting," she scolded, setting the tray down. "The doctor said stress is bad for your blood pressure." "I'm reading the sports section." Dante smiled, taking the coffee. "Juventus won." "Liar," Callie said, tapping the paper. "You were reading the global finance section. You're checking on the businesses." Dante sighed, caught. "Old habits." "Let them run themselves," Callie said, sitting on the arm of his chair. She ran her hand through his hair, which was starting to show streaks of grey at the temples. "Rosa says the new underboss is handling things well." "Rosa is terrifying." Dante chuckled. "She's running the family better than I ever did. I think she was actually the boss the whole time, and I was just the figurehead." A gurgle came from the playpen, set up in the shade of the olive tree. Sophia was trying to stand up, gripping the mesh sides with chubby fists. She let out a squeal of triumph as she pulled herself upright. Dante set his coffee down and walked over. He crouched beside the playpen. "Ciao, Bella," he whispered. Sophia grinned, revealing 2 bottom teeth. She reached out a hand, opening and closing her fingers. Dante extended his finger. She grabbed it, holding on with surprising strength. The birthmark on her shoulder, the star, was visible in the sunlight. Callie came up beside him, leaning her head on his good shoulder. "You know," Callie said softly, "that night in the hospital room, when we were planning to kidnap you." "Steal me," Dante corrected. "You were stealing me." "When Rosa and I were talking, we weren't just testing you," Callie admitted. "We had a vote before we came into the room. Rosa wanted to leave you. She said you were too far gone. She said the Mafia had eaten your soul." Dante looked at her. And I voted to stay," Callie said. "I told her that underneath the suits and the guns, I remembered the man who danced with me in Monte Carlo. I told her that a man who could look at me the way you did, he couldn't be empty inside." Dante stood up, wrapping his arm around her waist. He pulled her close. "You were wrong," Dante said seriously. Callie frowned. "What?" "I was empty," Dante said, looking from Callie to the baby, "until you two walked through that door and threatened to kidnap me." He kissed her. It wasn't the kiss of a Mafia don claiming a prize. It was the kiss of a man who had been drowning and had finally found the surface. "Mr. Moretti?" The voice came from the driveway. It was Rosa, looking uncharacteristically relaxed in a pair of sunglasses and holding a grocery bag. "We're out of formula," Rosa shouted, "and the security team says there's a boat approaching the private dock. They think it's a delivery." Dante pulled away from Callie, but he didn't reach for a gun. He didn't tense up here. "It's fine," Dante called back. "It's a birthday present." "For who?" Callie asked. Sophia's birthday isn't for months. For me, Dante said, today is the day I officially died. Callie looked confused. According to the papers in New York, Dante explained, gesturing to the news report he had been hiding under the sports section. Dante Moretti succumbed to his injuries yesterday. The funeral is being held today at St. Patrick's Cathedral. You faked it. Callie gasped. Again. I retired, Dante said, looking out at the endless blue ocean. The king is dead. Long live the king. He picked up Sophia, lifting her high into the air until she shrieked with laughter. I'm not a boss anymore, Dante said, holding his family close. I'm just a father. And that is a much harder job. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. For the first time in his life, Dante Moretti didn't check the exits. He didn't look for shadows. He just watched the sunset, surrounded by the only loyalty that had ever truly mattered. Love. And that is the story of how the most feared Mafia boss in New York was brought to his knees, not by a bullet, but by the love of a maid and a secret daughter he never knew he had. Dante Moretti learned that building an empire of fear is easy, but building a home is the real challenge. If you enjoyed this twist-filled Mafia romance, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. What would you have done in Callie's shoes? Would you have risked your life to save the boss or taken the money and ran? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.